why I'm using this camera angle that, I'm pretty sure most of you guys know that I used to use this camera angle when showing off some boxes. But the reason why I'm not doing this camera angle where, you can see the background or whatever, it's mostly because this box of this figure it's pretty big. But anyway, enough talking. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hiya Alien Queen exquisite mini. Now we have taken a look at a couple of Hiya's aliens, especially the big chap exquisite mini over there, and the aliens colonial marines Raven. I recently found out that that figure was not by NECA; it was actually by Hiya. So I'm gonna take my verdict on what I said in that Big Shot exclusive mini review, because I said in that one that NECA made that figure, which they did not. So I'm pretty sure there was a lot of people yelling at me in the comments, but who cares? But this was actually got this at my local comic book store, and this is probably one of the best alien figures I own. Well, that's a little bit of a stretch. It's not the best. Probably the best aliens figure that I have is the NECA big chap. That over there. That figure is probably one of the best aliens figures that I own. The big chap's exquisite mini is also a pretty good one for the size that it was, because it had pretty decent articulation, even though that it was like that big. But this one here, well, that's where the actual review comes in. But before we get to the actual review, let's look at the box. As you can see, it's a beautiful box. You have a nice picture of the Alien Queen there with the Aliens logo, and it says Exquisite Mini there with the Alien Queen there. On the side there, you've got Aliens with Exquisite Mini, and then you have the Aliens with Exquisite Mini. On the side there, you have a nice screenshot of the Alien Queen from the film, and then you have some more read-ups there. So this box is pretty gigantic. I'm going to put it on the ground here. And also, just want to let you guys know that if you are going to get this figure, be aware that this thing is encased in 3 layers of plastic. If you count the box, that's 4 layers of packaging. This thing comes with 3 layers. So you have the first layer, second layer, this is where it actually holds the alien figure, and the 3 accessories. We'll get to that later. And then we have the second layer, which holds the stand and some of the other accessories. We'll get to that later as well. So as you can see, that it does come with 3 layers of packaging. I was not expecting that. So for all you guys that hate packaging and want to rip it, make sure that you realize that you're going to go through 3 layers of packaging with probably a pound of tape. So anyway, enough ranting about packaging. Wow. Let's get into the actual review. I'm stuttering a lot. Please don't judge me. Let's just get into the actual review. I'm tired, alright? Let's just get into the actual review, please. Alright, so let's take a look at the figure itself. And as you can see, she is being propped up by her stand, because this figure cannot stand without it. So good luck trying to stand it out, because this thing needs its stand. And by the way, we have seen these plates here before with the other Hiya alien figures, and usually I just throw them in my accessory bag because I don't care about them, and usually they can stand up perfectly fine. But for this one, no, it's not going to be like those other figures. You're literally going to have to make her stand on the stand. I mean, if you can find a way to stand her up without the stand, please let me know in the comments, because I don't have enough room to display her with the stand. So I can display her without the stand perfectly fine. She can fit on one of my shelves on the side over here. But just with the stand, it's going to take up too much room. So please let me know. Until then, she's easy to stay on the side with the lanky-ass stand. But before we get into any detail or accessories, whatever you want to call them, I'm going to take a little moment here to explain this. So this is one of her spines right here. It's actually from the left side over here. So it was the third spine right here. right here. So these spines right here were a pain to get in. I literally had to get my dad to even like plug them in with one of his tools, and even then it was a challenge. And so they're supposed to connect into these holes right here on the side of her body here, but the thing is that these spines have really small, insignificant ball joints, and they're made out of a soft rubber. And I try to use the hairdryer technique, where you heat up that plastic so it can be a little bit, fit in there looser, and it can be a lot more easier to fit, like tighten up joints or plug joints in to, make sure it's not such a pain for yourself. But no, they made the ball joints even worse. The rubber, the heat of the hairdryer, of the ball joints, it made them really loose, and especially this spine right here. That ball joint is on its last life. It can pop off at any moment, and I'm very worried about that. But just don't, even though that they are ball joints, don't move them around too much. And if you're wondering how do you clip them on without using a hairdryer or a tool, you're literally just gonna have to do this. You're just gonna have to plug and twist and turn until something comes off. But until then, I'm not putting the spine back on because that is a pain, and I'm not doing that. And you're like, oh, did Hiya include some instructions to, maybe help you, or, which spine goes where? No, this is what I came with. So here's a Aliens Queen assembly instructions, sorry. How to attach the part. Display the part as seen in the image. Yeah. It doesn't tell you. It just says display the part as seen in the image, and it's a really crappy image. So there's no point. There's literally no point to this. This is about useless as men's nipples, all right? There's no point to this at all. So you can take this and throw that in the recycling because you won't need it ever. My recommendation, if you're going to get this figure, don't put the spines on. Just don't put the spines on. It's not worth the trouble. Even if you want to make the alien queen look as badass as she wants, as you want, because you're like, oh, she needs to have the spines, right? Don't put them on. Just don't put them on. Just leave them. Or, use some super glue, use some sticky tack, something to plug them in there that's not a pain on yourself. But until then, just don't put them on. If you can find a way to put them on without, heating up or using tools or anything like that, let me know in the comments, because until then, I'm not putting that spine back on. But anyway, let's take a look at the actual stand before we take a look at the figure herself. This is the stand. As I was saying, all these stands came with all the other Hiya alien figures. And usually I just throw them in my accessory bag because, that I wouldn't need them because they stand perfectly fine. It would literally this figure needs to stand with the stand. But instead of being just a planned plastic, it actually has a lot of, paint apps to it. You can see some rust in the grates there, which is amazing. You can see some brown in there. And you can also see some silver wearing off there. So that's kind of a gunmetal gray there going on, and some silver. On the bottom here, it's, you still have to have those little I's or H's, notches to plug them in. So you can literally, you can have a giant base. So you can take all the other stands that you collected and just make a huge stand so the other figures can stand up. And like you saw before, it does come with a little claw, like Figma figures or NECA, whatever. That doesn't have any articulation. It's just meant for her to sit on the stand. But at least that's clear, and you can plug it into any of these 3 holes there, or whichever way you want it to put. Recommendation, put it at the near front of the stand. And by the way, all these 3 notches here, they're only meant for the stand because the figure herself, she doesn't have any actual peg holes, so you're just gonna have to, kind of make her fold out like that, and that's pretty much what you're gonna do. There's no, you could try to bend the legs to get them, not at such an awkward angle, but until then, you're just gonna have to, kind of make her lean forward, but it's not a big of a deal. Let's move on to the figure herself, the main attraction. Just wanted to let you know that this figure looks amazing. Let me take at my little Big Shot exclusive mini here. I said that the detail and the articulation on this figure is exquisite. And as you can see, they are both in the same scale, so you can see how tall the alien queen is compared to a regular xenomorph there. So, lovely. Hopefully Hiya, makes some human figures to go along with them. That would be awesome. But the detail on this figure, since this figure is a little bit more bigger than the big chap, there's a lot more detail that they implemented that the other one couldn't because it was so small. But I'm glad that they added the kind of NECA paint apps, because the NECA figure has kind of like the exact same blue, blue and black, and kind of brown onto it, and so you can see all that lovely brown on the neck, and some brown on the legs here as well, going all the way down to her feet, and you can see some of the brown going onto the spines of her tail. And then you can see the beautiful crest there, which is also amazing. Really nice sculpting and paint on it as well. And you can see some stripes on the head of the crest there, which is amazing. And the tail is very long as well. And then you can see the end of the tail there. Beautiful. And then you can see some more detail on her tummy there, where you can see some of that kind of rib detail there, and then you can see the underside there, and then you can see some of the little elbow spines poking out there with some of that more brown paint that I was talking about before, and some more of that kind of brown dry brush effect going on into the kind of tiny arms in the front. So, and then you can see the hands there, which are beautifully painted and sculpted, really creepy, like skeleton-like, and they look like they're melting, which is kind of cool. And you can see the painted silver fingernails on the tiny arms here. You can see some of that more brown, tan, dry brushing effect, and some of that more silver claw detail. And then for the head here, which the head is beautiful, the teeth are a nice translucent yellow plastic, and you can see some of that kind of detail going on there. And then you can see some of that head detail on the front there, which is pretty good. If my camera would focus on that. Can you focus? No, it doesn't want to focus. Okay. But you can see some of that like warped effect going on there that she had in the film. And then you can see some of that spine detail that I don't want to think about ever. So, yeah. Detail on this figure is way, I guess, more eccentric than the big chap here, because the detail on this is still pretty good, but since this figure is a lot more bigger than this one, they could get away with a lot more detail and paint apps. Not saying that this figure is bad anyway, on the contrary, this figure is probably the better figure, in my opinion. I'm not saying that this figure is bad either, but I think that spine makes my verdict a little bit more judgmental. But let's see the articulation. Since this figure is bigger than Big Chap in every way, shape, or form, how does the articulation hold up? Is the articulation better, or is it worse? It's actually quite the same, in my opinion. The only thing that is different is the head. Now, the head here, the crest, it gets away in head posability, and especially these spines, because you're literally going to have to move the spines on the ball joints, and if you pop those spines off, then you're kind of screwed. And you're going to have to move these spines to get the head articulation, which is a pain. But the head crest can actually shift forward, just like in the film. So when Ripley, sees the alien queen for the first time, her head just kind of extends out of the crest like that, which is a great feature. I'm really glad that Hiya included that. So beautiful. And it kind of gets stuck, which is great, in my opinion. Not great. It's actually horrendous. Why are you stuck? Please tell me, why are you stuck? Okay. There we go. It kind of gets stuck, but other way. For the head, there's actually a lot of articulation just in this section alone. So the crest, I guess the main head is on a ball joint, so it can rotate, and it can move up and down, and the spines are going to get in the way of the head, And the neck here, this neck right here is also on a ball joint, so you can get a lot of articulation side to side. So you can get a lot of side to side and a lot of not very, you can get kind of down, a little bit of down, and a little bit of up. And this part here of the face is actually on a kind of a separate joint on its own, so it can move side to side and up and down. So all these ball joints working together, you can get some pretty good downward motion and a pretty good of upward motion. So yeah. And then for the arms here, they can rotate 360 degrees. Oh, don't get the spines in the way. And they can move in and out, a bend at the elbow, and a ball joint at the wrist, and it can also swivel. These tiny arms in the front here, they're just on a ball joint, no elbow, just a ball joint. And the spines have ball joints on them, as I mentioned before. The legs here, they can move in and out, so you can get a kind of a decent spread there. She can kick that far, and it can move back that far, and it can rotate 360 degrees if you can get those spines out of the way, but it can rotate 360 degrees. Bend at the knee, and it can extend. So bend at the knee, and another bend right here. So you got two kind of knee joints there. So bend there, and you can actually move in and out. And the toe here, I'm doing on this one because this one's better. It can move up and down, and a slight rotation. So, and then the tail, just like the Big Chop one, it's on a really good bendy wire, so pretty good. And it's a really nice ball joint. It doesn't feel like it's gonna snap anytime soon. It's really nice. It's really flexible. Great. So that tail can get out of the way when she's standing up. So, articulation on this figure is pretty amazing. I really like the articulation on this figure, especially compared to the little one. Big Chap had a lot of articulation for the size, but for this size, it's kind of standard action. Oh, and she does have a, I guess a mid ball joint there. So, but since this figure is kind of like a standard action figure size, this one it basically just has standard articulation for the size of it. But I really like the head here. This head right here is a really great implication for head articulation, because I'm pretty sure Hiya knew that with the spines and the crest, is going to be pretty hard to use that articulation for, poses and all that. So I'm glad that they implicated that separate head joint instead of connected to the entire thing. But before we move on, we're going to take a look at the accessories. Now, she does cut, like I mentioned before, she does come with the stand pieces and these little things here. So the three little the notches there that you guess you can call that accessories, which I don't count them as accessories. These are the only accessories that do matter, which are the jaw parts. And as you can see, these do come. So you have a slightly closed one and a more open one. So how you do it in there? Oh, she does have an opening jaw, by the way, but the jaw is kind of limited in there. So you're just going to have to, there's a little notch in her mouth there. You can kind of see it in there. My camera's really blurry. I don't know why it's blurry, but it's blurry. But you can, in fact, just stick it in there. You can just stick the inner mouth in there with the notch there. So just stick it in there, and everything should be handy-dory. Come on. Get in there. Oh god, don't move the crest. Why do you not want to go in? Oh. Oh god. There she is with the inner mouth in there, so it doesn't plug in really well. but it does plug in, and I'm sorry about the crest, but you're going to have to move the crest. When you're trying to put the inner mouth, the crest is going to get in the way, and it fell off, obviously, because this figure just wants to toy with me. And then you can fit the other one in there, but I don't really care about the inner mouse. She looks perfectly fine without the inner mouse, but that is a display option if you really want to. If you want to display her with these job parts in there. And she doesn't come with any other accessories besides those, which is perfectly fine by me. I mean, she doesn't need to have something, so you can include the little egg. I mean, she could have came with an egg, but you could probably use like NECA eggs or whatever, even though that's not in scale with this figure. But anyway, it's a really great figure. I really do like it. But the only thing that makes me loving it a little bit more is the spines. The spines do kind of annoy me. They don't just annoy me. They're a pain. But I think for $70, I think that this figure is great. Even though that if you don't want to buy the expensive NECA Alien Queen, this is a pretty reasonable size and a pretty reasonable price. But I would recommend the big chap because it has a little bit, it has decent articulation, and really great. Pretty much everything about this figure is great. So I would recommend getting both of them, but for right now, I recommend getting the big chap instead of the Alien Queen. But it's your opinion. But I'm glad that I have an Alien Queen in my collection, and I hope that you guys can find this figure as well. Just remember with the spines and all that, so it's probably going to break your immersion with the figure. So it broke my immersion with the figure, definitely. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it for this review, guys. So let me put the stand back on so she can stand. So that's pretty much it for this review, guys. Hope you enjoy it. Like, comment, subscribe. I don't care what you do, but you guys know what time it is. So, bye, guys.